What if one of the most dramatic prophecies in the Bible is unfolding in our lifetime? In 1948, after nearly 2,000 years of exile, the Jewish people re-established a nation in their ancient homeland, Israel. For many Christians, especially those who follow a specific kind of theology, this event wasn't just political history, it was prophecy being fulfilled. But what exactly does the Bible say about Israel returning to its land? And why do some believe this signals that the end times are approaching? Let's break it down. The idea that modern Israel fulfills biblical prophecy largely comes from a theological system called dispensationalism. This system was popularized back in the 1800s by a theologian named John Nelson Darby. Dispensational theology teaches a few key things. First, that God works with humanity through different periods or dispensations throughout history. Second, it holds that Israel and the Church are two distinct groups in God's ultimate plan. And third, it insists that the promises God made to ethnic Israel in the Old Testament are still literal and will be fulfilled in the future. This view became incredibly widespread, especially in America, thanks in large part to the Scofield Reference Bible, which was written by C.I. Scofield. Because of this teaching, many Christians started watching world events, especially events involving the nation of Israel, through a prophetic lens. So what are these biblical prophecies of Israel's return? Several Old Testament passages describe Israel being scattered among the nations and then, one day, being gathered back to their land. One of the most famous is found in Ezekiel chapter 36, where God says, "I will take you from the nations and gather you from all the countries and bring you into your own land." Another incredibly dramatic prophecy appears just one chapter later in Ezekiel 37, which contains the vision of the Valley of Dry Bones. In this vision, the prophet sees a field full of dry, lifeless human bones that suddenly begin to rattle and come together, forming a living, breathing body once again. Dispensational interpreters often say that the dry bones represent the scattered people of Israel, and the restored body represents the nation coming back to life. For centuries, this seemed absolutely impossible. The Jewish people were scattered across Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Middle East, with no central homeland. But then, history took a very unexpected turn. In May of 1948, Jewish leaders, led by David Ben-Gurion, declared the establishment of the modern state of Israel. For many Christians watching from around the world, this was astonishing. A nation that had not existed for almost 2 millennia suddenly reappeared on the map. Dispensational teachers immediately argued that this single event fulfilled a whole host of prophecies, pointing to passages in books like Isaiah chapter 11, Jeremiah chapter 30, and Amos chapter 9. Some even pointed to a fascinating question asked in Isaiah chapter 66. Can a nation be born in a day? For them, the answer seemed to be a resounding yes. Israel in 1948. But the prophetic story didn't stop there. Another major event happened in 1967. During the Six-Day War, Israel captured East Jerusalem, including the Old City and the Western Wall, the holiest site in Judaism. For the first time in centuries, Jewish control returned to the very heart of Jerusalem. For the first time in centuries, Jewish control returned to the very heart of Jerusalem. Many prophecy teachers immediately connected this moment with Jesus' own words in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 21, where he says, "Jerusalem will be trampled by the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled." They believed the recapture of Jerusalem was another crucial step in the end times prophetic timeline, pushing the world closer to its final events. According to classic dispensational teaching, the return of Israel to its land is only the beginning of a much larger prophetic sequence. The timeline they lay out usually looks something like this. First, Israel is regathered to its land. Next comes an event called the rapture of the church, where believers are taken from the earth. This is followed by a 7-year period of global chaos known as the tribulation, which sees the rise of a powerful and deceptive world leader called the Antichrist. This period is marked by global conflict that centers around the nation of Israel, culminating in a final massive conflict known as the Battle of Armageddon. This battle is then interrupted by the second coming of Christ, who returns to establish a 1,000-year kingdom on earth, known as the Millennial Kingdom, with Jerusalem as its capital. In this framework, you can see that Israel plays a central, non-negotiable role in the final events of world history. However, it's interesting to note that most dispensational scholars will say the current return of Israel is only a political or national restoration. They believe the spiritual restoration of the nation is still to come. They point to passages like Zechariah chapter 12, verse 10, which describes a future moment when the people of Israel will look upon the Messiah and mourn, recognizing who he is. The Apostle Paul also writes in his letter to the Romans, chapter 11, that, "And so all Israel will be saved." Dispensational interpreters believe this refers to a future mass turning of the Jewish people to faith in Christ, which they say will happen during the end times after the church has been raptured. Now, it's really important to say that not all Christians agree with this interpretation of prophecy. In fact, many other theological traditions see these scriptures in a completely different light. Some believe that the church is a kind of spiritual Israel and now fulfills the promises that were once made to national Israel. Others believe that many of these prophecies were already fulfilled in earlier historical events, long before the 20th century. And still others believe that these passages are meant to be read symbolically or allegorically rather than as literal predictions of future geopolitical events. So while dispensationalists see modern Israel as clear proof of prophecy unfolding before our eyes, many other sincere believers look at the exact same scriptures and come to very different conclusions. So, is the modern return of Israel a fulfillment of biblical prophecy? For believers who hold to a dispensational view, the answer is clear. History is moving exactly where the Bible said it would. For others, the interpretation is far more complicated and nuanced. But one thing is absolutely certain. The story of Israel, ancient, scattered, and now reborn in the modern era, remains one of the most fascinating intersections of history, faith, and prophecy. And the debate over what it all means for the future of our world is far from over. Thanks for watching. If you found this interesting, be sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives into history and theology.